Good morning, my friend. Saturday, April the 20th, Hitler's birthday. I have a couple of friends of mine who were born on April the 20th. There's also that's that stoner thing too, Hitler's birthday. And I said, if only we cared enough about demystifying. If you want to destroy the power of something, demystify it. Do you agree? Of course you agree. Do you know why the N word is the N word? Because we haven't demystified it. The N word is this hallowed kryptonite that we have elevated through this verbal apotheosis. We have elevated it. But if you wanted to get rid of the sting of the N word, what you would do? Very simply, what would you do? Destroy it. Make it ubiquitous. Make it, Same thing with Hitler. The worst thing in the world for anybody to see is to realize and to recognize how monumentally ordinary he was. And also, what you never, ever want. I saw this on Joe Rogan recently. By the way, Joe Rogan, Lex Friedman. Oh, I've got so much to say today, so just get ready. I'm throwing so much at you. It's 199 days until the election. We're under the 200-day mark. My mind is going nuts. I'm just warning you. I'm just warning you, good and great people. I'm just warning you. Get ready for this. Believe me when I tell you this. Let me finish this one. Everything is changing so drastically. And what we must ensure, if we as a society are supposed to flourish, is to be able to notice change. We're going to be talking about change. We're going to be talking about Trump. We're going to be talking about, I'm hearing rumors, I don't know how true they are, but from friends of mine in the biz, that Fredo is going to go back to CNN. Are you hearing this? What does that mean? What does that mean? The last gasp of corporate, statist, heritage, legacy media. The last gasp on its way out, trying desperately. When this is throwing a bone. Yesterday, when there was a woman from CNN standing there explaining this immolation of this man who said he was emblazoned. I'll never forget. And people, I guess, I'm always going to say, well, look, somebody was. But later on, I told people, I said, that she said emblazoned. I said, yeah, I know. I said, no, not emblazoned. The word blaze. No, emblazoned me, to wear, to display, he had on his suit emblazoned with his medals and nobody even knew what that was. So I thought, oh my God, I'm not jumping on her. I just thought it was interesting. She also, if you notice, she said active shooter. Did somebody tell her? Did you? I could have sworn I heard this. I'm thinking, wait a minute. What was this story? It was better covered by people on Twitter with a phone or using other feed or whatever it is. We are transformational. So stand by, dear friends. Get ready for this like you've never gotten ready for this before. Get ready, get ready, get ready. But before we begin, let me just say, first of all, welcome. Thank you so much for being a part of us. Thank you for being a part of our thing. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for all of this. And let me also just tell you very, very quickly, as we do, we have some wonderful friends of ours, wonderful sponsors, and I love them. And anybody who sponsors with us, I come right back at you. And prepare with Lionel.com. They have been with us from the beginning. And I love these people. I love the product. And I love the concept because you don't have to sell it. Very simply put, imagine if for some reason you had to have food for 30 days, 90 days, something that looks, I don't know, like this. something you can go to with resealable oxygen pouches, and you had a variety, 16 variety, 20 varieties with a 25-year shelf life. Look at this. Look at this deal now. This is the okay. If this doesn't grab you, nothing will. 4-week emergency food supply. Limited time deal. $50 off. 2,000 calories a day. Imagine your kid saying, "What are we going to eat?" And you think to yourself, "Well, I have some spaghetti." No, we're done with that. "Well, I've got some." You never planned for this. You never thought it was going to be. I'm not talking about the Visigoths or the Houthis are going to be invading, though that's not out of the question. But what about just in terms of inclement weather, a disaster, supply chain breakdown? If you don't understand the benefit of emergency food, nothing does. So that's it, my friends. That's it. Very simply this, preparewithlionel.com, preparewithlionel.com, preparewithlionel.com. Can't say it enough, preparewithlionel.com. Now, my friends, I think one of the best, I'm so lucky in that I come from a time in my generation when we lived during a transformational era. We lived during a time which was really something. And I remember the days of Cronkite and, when news really mattered, and it was just, I've been through every iteration of this. Think about what we're doing right now. Here we are on a Saturday morning. Let me do this. Just as we get started, tell me, everybody, quickly, just in your city and state. Don't say Ohio. Don't listen to me carefully. Just put city and state. Williamsburg, Texas. Left Hampshire, England, whatever it is. Look at where we are right now in this informational, transformational, in this communicative method where you're yes, you're watching me, or maybe you're watching me later, but we're watching it now and you're talking to each other. Look at this. LA, New York, Broomfield, Colorado, Tampa, Monk's Corner, I love that, South Carolina, Virginia, Gold Beach, Oregon, Pensacola, Allentown, Newman, Georgia. See, I love names like that. Newman, Cincinnati, Gates Mills, Ohio. Plus, we have people all over the world. Think about this. And as I'm talking to you, I immediately am humbled by your being here. I'm not Fredo. I'm not the star. Sometimes, I'm not going to mention names, but sometimes there are people who enjoy a certain degree of success on the internets, and they do not in any way come across as being nice. Okay? They're losing their they've lost their humility, dare I say. Two people who've not, Rogan and Friedman. Lex Friedman is the same as he was. What a style that one is. The black, the same. I love this. Very serious, flat affect. He is who he is. And Joe Rogan, who is just as interested in, he never throws into his money, or I'm telling you, it's a very, very difficult thing. I've seen it before. Doesn't take himself too seriously. Doesn't lose his mind. Let me tell you what else is happening. Alex Jones, I want to send this message out to him. Do us a favor, dear friend. Number one, he was singularly critical he was the godfather of everything we're doing right now. You hear what I'm saying? He was the godfather. He was the subject of a targeted takedown for people who have nothing to care at all about what he said about any event or tragedy. They couldn't care less about that. What they care about is the fact that they want to destroy him. They want to destroy him. And he has got to do a couple of things. First, dear Alex, lose weight, get healthy. You're a young man to look this out of shape. And it could be a lot of things. That's number one. I'm just saying friend to friend. Number two, go back to what you did. When Rick Rubin rescued Johnny Cash, they said, I want you to be Johnny Cash. Stripped him down, gave him an acoustic guitar, and blew away the world. 9 Inch Nails. And I mean, go back to who you are. That's all I'm going to say. I hope this lady never stops being who she is. Madam Stamp says, morning, Lionel. Lionel watched you tearing it up on the blazing strings, playing Judd Clappett's song, wonderful. Been considering a dobro, and that rendition may have been my catalyst. As always, thank you and bless you. By the by, if you want to hear the dobro today, the king, the absolute king, Madam Stamp, it is Jerry Douglas. He's it. There have been greats and there are greats. Jerry Douglas transformed it with Alison Krauss and whatever. But Jerry Douglas is the person. But thank you for that. Let me tell you what's happening right now. This is important for us to realize this. There's 199 days. I want you to read also, if you can. First of all, this fellow died. Don't mention his name. Don't mention his name. Nobody will ever do this. Nobody will ever do this. I don't understand. I wish we could do it. I know one thing about serial killers. They love the infamy. They love it. And very few people, if you didn't have to mention their names, you have to when you've got an active, killer out there. But you gave a lot of people. BTK wanted it so much. Oh, my God. I think they should give him a nickname that's a pejorative, like, big, whatever. I'm not going to say. But why they do this, I don't know. But I want you to listen, if you can. Don't spend a lot of time. But listen to what he said. In some of I didn't read his entire manifesto, and I don't intend to. But what he talks about is not crazy. I know people are saying, what? I'm telling you what he said was not crazy. What he said was not crazy. What he did was crazy. If I cited the Bible, if I cited John 3:16 and then killed people, what does that mean? Does that make John 3:16 stupid? No, it means that I took it and I distorted it. But listen to what he's saying. And listen to how people don't understand what it is that he said, irrespective of what he did. This is terrible. They don't understand this. I'm writing my list. I'm writing my list. And this is my manifesto. I'm not going to do anything like this. No, I'm extremely sane. And my problem is I am one of the absolute most, what am I trying to say? I'm one of the most, well, I don't know what the word is. I'm sort of an old, and I say this in many respects, and I say this in the nicest way possible. I say this in a way, and I hope nobody takes it the wrong way, but I am absolutely an old, what you would call a hippie. Not into the drug stuff, but live and let live, a pacifist. I really am. I'm a pacifist. 99.9% of all battles and war is unnecessary. It's unnecessary. It's unnecessary. I am talking to people right now who do not understand what's happening regarding Israel and Gaza and the Palestinians, and I don't know what's going on. But you and I live in a world that has no platform. Do you understand what I'm saying? Let me say this again and listen. And this is why every single American should be terrified. Nobody is looking out for us. Nobody. At best, we'll find somebody who hits it more than others. Donald Trump, who this week they say he fell asleep, and they also say he was flatulent. They will stand and nothing. I think that is one of the funniest stories because people just went crazy. I wish he would say, yes, I was flatulent. That's what I think. That's exactly what I think. This is my way. I'm flatulent. I'm not him, her, they. I'm flatulent. And then that's my pronoun, flatulent. And if you have any problem with that, let the lactose intolerant know. Make a joke out of it. This is how desperate they are. But he's closer to speaking to us. And let me go back to what I originally started with. CNN used to be, and you won't remember this, in 1980, the greatest form of news platform, international there was. Bernard Shaw. They had people who, look, there was one guy whose face was so chiseled. Belushi could have done lines of coke out of the lines in his face. They're like, I don't know what his name was. They didn't even have names. It was just one after another. They're like, when they talk like that, and they acted like your dad. And there were people who they had a certain Bill Butel, Roger Grimsby, this is local, this is news, this is Walter Crunk. Even Dan Rather, there was a maturity. Then we got Fredo, who's doing fake weights, like 100 pounds behind. I mean, just this is a joke. A child, an absolute child who, by virtue of this system, rose to the top where people said, for some reason, hey, he's good. He's not a dummy, but he's a child. What happened was, in 1996, at the beginning, really, of the internets as we know it, when all of a sudden there was this proliferation of everything. Do you remember the news that first came about at first? It was wonderful. Do you remember this? Do you remember when it first started? Do you remember the right when it started? Right when it, do you remember when all of a sudden, let me go back. Let me go back. Do you remember the first time you heard somebody that made you say, what? The first time you heard like Bill Cooper, okay? And I'm not endorsing him necessarily, but I said, what the hell is that? Everybody has this moment where they hear something for the first time. They say, I've never heard that before. In jazz, some people heard the first Thelonious Monk who said, no, we're not going to play like, we're playing like this. We're going to play a structured kind of a, I think when Keith Jarrett first started off in jazz in the 70s, and that I remember, I was like, my God, what's this? Cubism, Dali, surrealists, the people who said, here's a bowl of fruit, and here's a woman with her vulva out of her ear. Remember that one? There was this jump. Bill Cooper, who was the first person? And I remember at the time, there were people who came along. It was a Bill Cooper. Oh, that's it. What is that about? Oh, yes. And then somebody would say, have you heard of Sun Tzu? Remember that one? Sun Tzu? Notice how I say it. Wow. It was like going to college again. It was like hearing this cool, like hearing Spinoza or Schopenhauer or something for the first time. All of this made possible by virtue of the internet. It came out. And all of a sudden, people says, you know what? I think there is a thing called a globalist. And the best part was some of the stuff that we thought was new was in fact not new. It was old. It had been said before, but we didn't know this. And to us, it was new. Remember that? And I know people laugh at this because they don't know anything about it. But around right before 2000, when all of a sudden I met this thing called the internet, and I turned on, oh, sure, there are some people who, people love to dismiss it. And if you don't know how to filter news, I don't know how to help you. But all of a sudden, this guy, Alex Jones, came on. And he just absolutely just said, what the hell is this. And it was also something which was important. It was this time when other people came along. There's a fellow named, I don't know if you've heard him, on X. And if you're not on X or Twitter, Dom Lucre, 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 black feller, dreadlocks, absolutely brilliant. 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 There are teams. When Andy No came along, when I'm not going to go through the list. The point is, there were people who came along and they said, no, it's like this. And it was the most wonderful thing that ever happened. It was like, wow, this is interesting. I never thought about it like this. I never thought this way. And the powers that be, left and right, remember, when you go to Washington, it is a Potemkin village. It is a backlot. It is a movie. It is a pretend and make believe world of separation of ideas. Sparky says, funny, when CNN had accurate news, their pay was very low. When Time Warner took over and they became fake news, they became ridiculous, ludicrously high. You're right about that, Spooky. I should call you Spooky because you are spooky. Sparky, pardon me. Spooky. Dennis Yost in the Classics 4, remember that? ARS does a better version of it. Ronnie Hammond. And anyway, you're right about that. But also, Sparky, there's something else. When you see how do I say this? When you see a proliferation of more and more and more and more and more news, what happens at first is, or anything for that matter, it collapses the medium and then the best rises. Case in point. Today, as we speak, comedy, and I use that term with a lowercase c, is at its nadir. Notice how cool I say it. I don't say nadir like Ralph Nader. It is at its nadir. And the reason for it is very simply this. It is at its nadir because of the fact that there was a proliferation in the 80s, especially, and everybody went, remember ha-has, hoo-hoos, he-has, slapsticks, knee slappers, yuck-yucks, hoo-ha, and you still see them, but it was the improv, and the improv was right here on 40, whatever street, 40, where was it, 46, right down the street, here, with the original improv, where all of it went, where Pryor and Robert Klein, and there was a real resurgence. I mean, it really was something. Robin Williams and other people who really were something. But there was just a few, and they really had to fight to get on. And there were people who said, okay, you're good. Now it's so bad, you could still go to Times Square and they give a comedy, and they have the comedians going out to pass out whatever free tickets to come to the, I mean, it's just a proliferation, and it's this ensemble of people who have just completely collapsed under this delusion of the fact that they're not just funny, but that they're witty or whatever. Absolutely the worst. You will never see anything the likes of which Carlin, again, people who made Bill Hicks, Lenny Bruce, Dick Gregory, never. Why do you think that is? Why? Because they're here. The old days, the only way they could do it, because there was no internet, is you went in front of a wall and you went someplace and you went to a Bud Friedkin or somebody, you said, please, Let me on, please, bud, please. Okay, I'll give you a set. 2 a.m. at whatever it is. All right. And that's the way it was. Look at this, my friend. Edie Crowley says, I worked at an event where Steve Allen spoke. Oh, Steve Allen? Look, let me tell you something. Thank you for this. My heroes, the ones that I still watch, and Steve Allen, the Steve Allen Show, Jack Parr, the Ernie Kovacs was a visual genius. He didn't have any technology. He just did stuff that Ernie Kovacs was. It may seem kind of simple in a very strange way. Steve Allen and Jack Parr, both of, I think it was, I forget if sometimes it's Parr, maybe it's Allen, who created the couch and the guest, and they were conversationalists. But this changed it. Because here's the thing which is the most funny, and I want you to listen very, very carefully. Most of the people who said, I'm going to go into this from my comedy background, don't really know anything. They have scripted, tight 5 and 10-minute shows, and they do this. They are into the, and they're very, very good at this. That's it. But there's nothing else there. They are performance artists. They perform their scripted routine. Sometimes they write it. Somebody write it with them, but they go out there and they perform it. They perform somebody else's thing. When left to their own devices, they're not wits. They're not intellects. They're not academics. They don't know anything. Every now and then somebody. Rogan is different, and Alex Jones is different. Lex Friedman. We're having a move right now. The other day, I saw something I thought was so interesting. Joe Rogan was actually talking about soil erosion patterns, water and flooding erosion patterns in Egypt. And he did like a 3-hour show, and I thought, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life. Somebody said, if I walked into one of these stupid program directors at a radio station today, remember, those who can do, those who can't program, they're the worst. These are the hacks from radio who used to work at some little morning, whatever in Winnetka, and then they went into sales, and then they work for, and they're great at yelling out the call signs, but they don't know anything about talent. They know anything about what's going on in the world. They just know this formulaic, stupid world. And if I came in and said, listen, I've got this guy who's going to come in and spend the whole morning talking about soil erosion in Egypt to prove that there was perhaps a diluvian period, they say, get the hell out of here. Joe Rogan did it because he believes it. He has a passion. People believe him. And he's got 1 million, 2 million, 5 million people watching a particular show on it. Sparky says 2 members of Classics 4 became ARS. Yes. To ARS version of Spooky may technically be a cover, but sort of not a cover. You're right. They also did Ronnie Hammond, JD something or other. By the way, Rodney Husto, my old friend from Tampa, was one of the original purveyors, original founders of Atlanta Rhythm Section. He left. I think Ronnie Hammond came in, who was terrific. Remember that bass player played the Rickenbacker, J. Goddard or something, Paul Goddard, or this guy weighed about 500 pounds, had thick glasses, scariest look. His guitar player, Hammond was one. Listen to Large Time. If you want to hear what was also Southern rock, Large Time. Well, I'm glad to be living in the USA, playing for the ARS. May not be your cup of tea, but I guarantee you this. Just guitar, but unbelievable. This was Southern rock, not country, Southern rock. This was the time that was very, very important. This was thanks to Jerry Wexler and Capricorn Records and all those other folks and Almonds. I think the Almonds really were the Marshall Tucker in any event. I love them. I love Doraville is still. So anyway, my friends, And see what I'm doing right now? I hope this drives people crazy. And if it drives you crazy, I may talk to you. And if somebody brings something up, say, you know what? I'm going to bring this up and I'm going to go back to what I'm saying. I had one program director. He was like a linear person. He hated me because I said, this is so boring. This is the most boring stuff in the world. Let's be different. Let's be different. I don't understand why we're getting the same people. Hey everybody, it's 8 after there. You know, I don't know about you, but I think this is a crazy kind of talk here. Saying President Trump was responsible. He didn't. And now let's go up to the sky and get our traffic with Don Williams in traffic. Johnny, well, thank you, Dave. When I hear that, it kills me. It's nostalgic, but it's anachronistic. It's not that it's vintage or retro. It's anachronistic. It's the weirdest thing I've ever heard in my life. And you have no idea how when you work for radio stations, you get these program people, and the first thing they want to do is they want to kill your spirit. I know that sounds like I'm thinking, what are you talking about? I had a guy one time, I used to say lock and load, lock and load, lock and load. That was my thing, lock and load with Lionel. Said it in Florida, lock and load. That was my, it was a phrase, a shibboleth that people, lock and load, John Wayne said it in a movie, lock and load, ripped and stripped, cocked and locked. Yeah, it was a gun reference, but it was, not a program director, but this doofus who said, I think what you're doing is you're advocating violence. I remember saying to him, I said, you're serious. That's what scares me. You're serious about this. I thought this was a joke, but you're serious. And I walked off. He hated me. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine telling somebody that? You've got something that is to build a name, to develop a bit, to have something. But somebody comes along and says, I'm going to change this because I don't like I'm going to kill your spirit. I don't like the fact that you think that you want to be real. I did a thing one time where I walked in when I was at WFLA in Tampa. Some of the most, it was so mondo. It wasn't even funny. And one day I walked in and I was talking to James Madison and I was telling him about what's going on in the Constitution. And I would be, you would hear me on the phone, Jimmy. Yeah, it's me. Listen, you sitting down? Okay, listen. We have metal detectors. I kid you not. Metal detectors. And I was doing this. It was a version. They said it was Bob Newhart, but it was actually, believe it or not, it was Georgie Jessel who did this before, the phone thing. And then Andy Griffith did it. But it's a monologue. It's in a monologue. It's also called an apostrophe. Everybody got it. They got it. This was in Tampa. If I tried that with these jadrules, who are you talking to? They don't understand. They don't get it. So what I'm trying to tell you is that there is this group of people out there, and I wish I could say to you, it's like, ladies and gentlemen, if I could speak before the NAB, every year they have the NAB. These poor bastards, they go to the you're going to the NAB this year? You're going to the NAB? I've never been to the NAB. I don't want to go to the NAB. What is it? National Associate Broadcasters and all the, where's the NAB? See you at the NAB. We're going to be at booth number 3. Ooh, okay. And the only people who ever had any kind of difference were at least talk people. But if I went, I'm speaking, I'm saying, you don't understand what's happening. You are part of, if you're trying to get to the big time of, let's say, CNN, you are buying into a group of people who will not be here anymore. This is the last gasp of this. The people, because what you're doing is you went from, as Sparky said, in the 80s, you went from a really seriously reputable news organization, and now you have moved into this iteration of whatever this is. And you are a propagandist. You are a stooge. You are a, I'm sorry to say this, but you are an apparatchik. You are a dupe, a fool, a loon, you're just a shill for these people. You're just a shill. You don't understand it, do you? You're out here with your emblazoned that this, I still think that was, I'm the only one who, bless his heart. I'll never forget this. When George Wallace was shot, remember Cornelia? George Wallace shot. It was 1972. Okay, so I was 14 at the time. And I remember my mother and I think Cornelia was his wife, and she was, they said, well, how's George doing too? Well, his organs are fine. Or something like that. Like, his organs are fine. And I'm looking at my mother, and we are laughing. We're saying, because we get it. It's like, because we're not thinking his organ. That's not her fault. She's not a professional. There was a case one time that was reading on. This isn't funny. Let me just tell you right off the bat. This isn't funny. But I'm going to tell you, when you're on the air and there's all this tension and you're trying not to laugh, you got people walking around in other rooms and people are having lunch and they're, I don't know. The mood can be lighthearted, and that's the sound of a great radio station. They were reading the verdict of this terrible case, and they're reading count 1, count 2, count 3. And there was something, it was sexual battery, and the clerk meant to say, with anal penetration. I'm sorry. That was the word. Apparently, according to the statute, it was critical that the word with anal penetration. All right. I'm sorry to say, that is the word. That's the phrase. That was a part of this case. Okay. All right. The woman clerk who was reading this, said, and I'm sorry to say this, please do not think this is, I'm anyway making a joke about that, okay? But she said, count 2, whatever, with annual penetration. And I'm like this, I'm thinking, please I'm listening to this live. I said, please let this be the only time. Let's just move on. Count 2 with annual penetration. Nothing funny about it at all. She was a clerk. She didn't know. You would think that something in her, the word anal and annual, you would think in the course of this, but you can say, okay, well, she's a clerk. Excuse me, she's read this before. How does an adult not know these words? Do you understand this? Laurie says, growing up, samies were the worst. Everyone strove to be authentic. How about today, Laurie? Normies. And thank you for that. I was on the air one time, and we were sitting around, and I thought this was a complete and total cluster. This was the worst programming anybody's ever seen. They pulled people in, and they brought this one person into and they said, well, she's got a lot of energy. And I told the program director, I said, well, so does a gerbil, but I don't know if that means anything. They got energy. Had no clue what was going on. None. And we're talking about something. It was the Mars Pathfinder. And I think at one particular point, she thought it was a Pathfinder, like a Toyota Pathfinder. But at one particular point, everybody's sitting around, and there was somebody from some news guy, and she always had to have a say. Always had to have like a say. You gotta say something. Can I say something? Can I ask a question? It's like, oh, Jesus. And the question was, does Mars have a sun? And I got up and I walked into the program director and said, did you hear that? And I said, you're not going to fire her, are you? You're not going to say, that's it, come here. Because if you don't know that, I don't know what else you don't know. And that's scary. So get your stuff and get out. No, you're not going to do that. But if she dropped an F-bomb, you would. So not knowing basic rudimentary solar system, configuration, that's not a problem at this organization. But saying the F-bomb was. And this is when I realized it was over with. It was over with. Because what happened, everybody was kind of rocking and rolling. And then Rush Limbaugh came along, and everybody wanted to be Rush Limbaugh. And everybody would talk like this. Hey, I'm doing overlines. I've been in radio. Yeah, but you don't know anything. And there was no angle. Rush was Rush because of. Do you know one time when Trump does this thing where he goes into Chick-fil-A and says, buy 30 milkshakes? Remember that? Years ago on WABC, Rush Limbaugh called in an intern or something. Nicest man, Rush Limbaugh, nicest man in the world. Nicest man in the world. Generous. He said, it was National Meat Out. Don't eat meat today. So he, and I think he goes, here. And he gave him, I don't know, like $1,000 or something. He said, I want you to go to McDonald's and buy everything they have. Everything. Whatever's there, just buy it and bring it back. Now, I'm thinking to myself, this guy was so into the message. They could have said they did this, but he wanted to be authentic. He wanted to be, even the fish too, everything. Fries, just bring it all. Get it. Because people are always hungry at radio stations. And they came in. Imagine the manager goes, a guy was in, hi, like everything. You want everything? Yeah, everything. He pulls out like $500. I got more. I got the change, Rush. Keep it. So he was doing this kind of stuff then, and everybody thought it was just. And Rush did things. Rush did stuff that was different. He took conservatism. He said, I'm going to make it funny. Remember the condom updates up and away, and nobody dared tell Rush what to do. But the reason the genius was, they said, let him do what he does. We don't see that anymore. So when Fredo Cuomo is considered to be cutting edge, this is when you realize it's over. It's over for them. There are people, and you can like them or not. There are people who I don't particularly care, but are so interested on their own podcast or their own whatever it is. And I'm telling you, thanks to Mr. Rogan and others, they are changing the world. And these jadrules don't get it. Stand by, my friends. It's time. It's time. It's time for our dear friend, Mike Lindell, and our buddies at mypillow.com. But only if you use promo code Lionel. Well, it's time yet again to hail and salute our great friends at mypillow.com. And if you use promo code Lionel, you get a free gift. No purchase necessary. I know, a free gift. Gifts are free. Okay, it's a tautology, so sue me. But listen to me and listen carefully. What are we talking about here? Down comforters, flannel sheets, Giza Dream bed sheets, MyPillow 2.0 body pillows, waffle blankets, couch and recliner pillows, sheets, slippers, percales. I'm not even done yet. Towels, quilts, bedspreads, mattresses, mattress covers, mattress toppers, linens, kitchen towels, bathrobes, pet blankets, bolster pillows, name it. Items to help you luxuriate and relax. And their monster sellers, slippers, my slippers, slip-ons, moccasins. Think about it. What do they do at MyPillow? What's their main goal? To make things real soft, plush, real comfy, or comfy as I say it. How perfect. So here's the link right now. Go to mypillow.com/Lionel. mypillow.com, promo code Lionel or /Lionel, or call 800-645-4965. 800-645-4965. And watch how fast our good friend Mike Lindell answers the phone. mypillow.com, promo code Lionel, simply and absolutely the best. There is a group of people that I'm trying to deal with as well who don't understand what you don't, or what you do. And it's these groups of people who always try to find folks who represent conservative ideology. And there's one group who represents Republicans, the other ones who represent more conservative and whatever. And I said, you do realize that these words don't mean anything, don't you? You do understand this. These words, Republican, I don't even know what that means. That's bull moose, Democratic Republicans, the Labor Party. These terms don't mean anything. They don't mean anything. I can't say it enough. They don't mean anything. Conservatism, I don't know where that one is either. I have a friend of mine, and I don't want to bludgeon people. And I said, what was Pearl Harbor? Question number 1. Number 2, what do you think it was when Israel attacked the sovereign consulate and really embassy in Damascus, the Iranian consulate, embassy? What was that? Was that provocation? My friend, because my friend watches Fox News and the other iterations of this, realized that Iran is never right. They're evil. They're a bunch of theocratic, scary people, and whatever they do is just evil. And I said, don't get me, let me see if I get this straight. Israel has a right to defend itself. October the 7th was a terrorist attack. Hamas is a terrorist organization. And I said, I know exactly what you're going to say. And that's the beginning of what's going on. Imagine during Me Live, somebody said, do you realize that communism poses a real threat to the world? Do you understand that there's a domino effect? Assume a domino effect. And therefore, that's why we went and slaughtered these people. I mean, just as an example. Sometimes that argument doesn't work. And I said, do you understand? Let me see if I can explain this to you. And the story of stories this past week, and thank God for some other folks who I think have been green-lighted. I believe they've been green-lighted. Because, again, Judge Napolitano and others, I'm telling you right now, I don't know of any, if we would necessarily agree with every single thing there was, but Napolitano and Sachs and McGregor and Max Blumenthal and Aaron Mate and even Katie Halper, this is some of the best stuff ever. They have David Cameron, who was asked by BBC, what would you do if a country attacked the British consulate in a country? Is that an act of war, or do you have the right to respond? And he said, yes. That's it. That's it. And yet at the same time, he's saying that, well, of course, and this and that, and because, and I'm saying, look, this is not about pro-Israel. It's not, no. Just look at the facts of the case. And that's what I'm trying to tell my friends. You're not listening. You are first and foremost sworn to some ideology where you think being a conservative means whatever Israel, the government does, not Israel, the people, but whatever the government does, whatever the Netanyahu, Likud, or whoever you want to call it, whatever they do is fine. And you are 100% behind it because they have the right to defend themselves. That's it. That's all you're saying. So do me a favor. I'm not going to talk to you anymore. I'm just going to go watch. I'm going to talk to whoever writes the script for Fox News because you're merely repeating what they're repeating. You have no independent thought. You've thought this thing through. Is that it? So when Fox News or whatever says, these are the good guys, these are the bad guys. Do you understand what's happening? Do you understand what the world is thinking? Do you understand? I went through this with Iraq. I said, what did Iraq have to do with 9/11? What? I was here. I keep telling people I was here. If anybody should have this focused lunacy, about 9/11, it's me and Mrs. O. We were here. Most people saw it on TV. We were here and smelled it for weeks and months later after the fact. We were here. And I kept saying to myself, what the hell does this have to do with Iraq? Nothing. Do you not see what's going on? This is a ruse. This is a work. The Patriot Act. They've had this thing. Come on, Wesley Clark. All these people said this. Oh, come on. And they followed the same story. And then, if you remember something very, very important. You probably don't remember this, but I do. Phil Donahue was fired from MSDNC at the time, which was supposedly this liberal bastion, because he said, "What, this war is ridiculous." And they said, "No," because the government said, "Let's put." Remember that guy David, who rode in the back of the truck and he died of thrombosis or phlebitis or something, and they put people on the. Remember this one? They had embedded reporters. That's when I realized, and that's when the left and the right became one. Two sides of the same coin. Sparky says, Iran was once a choice duty station for American military families. It's modern and has a large, young, well-educated population and a lot of easily defended terrain. And also, Sparky, what nobody wants to do is nobody wants to talk about the people of Iran. Remember, there was a woman years ago on CNN. Her name was Rudy Bakhtiar, and she was a CNN years ago. I don't know, but I think she's a Iranian, and we were told these people are just evil. They're evil, and nobody understands context. Let me explain to you something, Sparky. Maybe you can help me with this one. Who here has heard of Operation Ajax? Do you remember what that was? I know you got your mockingbirds and paper clips and mongoose and all the good ones but do you remember Operation Ajax? And that, of course, was the overthrow, the CIA Kermit Roosevelt overthrow of Mossadegh. Remember that one? What do you think that does? 1953, Iranian coup d'etat, Operation Ajax. This covert CIA operation in 1953. Mohammed Mossadegh, remember that one? This is a joint venture between CIA, MI6. This was. What do you think? This was great. What do you think this was? What? Not a theocratic Mossadegh. He was going to nationalize the oil. Oh, no. We wanted the Shah of Iran. And the Shah wanted nothing to do with it. He wanted to live in Paris and shop with his wife. And they said, oh, no, we're bringing your ass back. He said, what? Yeah, we're bringing you back. You are coming back. You're going to run this. Any context? Does anybody ever tell you about that? Do you ever hear anybody on Fox or anybody say, by the way, do you think maybe they might have a little bit of this is 53, right? 71 years. Do you remember what the overthrow was? What the students and what they thought at the time? Do you know what this was with the Shah? Do you have any idea? See, Americans will tell you there is no reason for this. Last night, we happened to see something which is on HBO, which is so interesting. Oh, no, Netflix. It's about O.J. Simpson. It's one of the most interesting things, and I've seen a lot of stuff, but this is one of them. And at the time, there were people who wanted so much. There were black folks who were so tired. Generations, if you will, of black folks ready for the tripwire, ready for the moment of I'm going to explode. And there was the riots, Watts, this and that. Now, people watched that. They watched that. There were people killed. There was billions of dollars in property. Remember the riots after Rodney King? Do you know what the riots are about? Lori Cook says Iranian kids wouldn't step on the U.S. flag during Trump. Maybe, I guess. Listen, so a lot of the younger people, Lori, are into American themes, American fashion. Remember, right about the time of the Shah, some particular point, there was kind of Western. You saw women all the time walking around with they said with these bandages because they had nose jobs, and even women who didn't have the nose job had the bandage to make you think they had the nose job. There was a westernization. There was absolutely. But if you're looking at black and white, you're never going to find it there. You got to look at the. But do you understand what it was? Do you understand what those students felt like? What the point? Do you understand it? I'm not justifying it. Do you understand it? I understand it. Raul Rodriguez says they brought the Shah back and then he spent the nation's budget on his wedding. He was, if ever there was a guy, Raul, who basically asked for it, it's the Shah. I mean, he just didn't care. He did not care, and they eventually said, okay, that's enough with you. Sparky says, fun fact, after the 1979 revolution, Iran took over the Iran GM plant and continued to manufacture the Generation 1 Cadillac Seville. It was the only decent American car of the late 1970s. I did not know that. I did not know that. So here's the thing I wanted to say. And this is what people don't understand. Understanding something and agreeing with something. I understand why America's riot. I don't agree with it. I don't sign off and say, go ahead, riot. That's a good idea. Just because I understand something. I understand it. I understand it. There are sometimes as a criminal lawyer when you have to make a claim of self-defense, you say, I wouldn't have handled it that way, but I understand what had happened. So when people say October the 7th, when Piers Morgan talks about October the 7th, he talks about it, and I think he said it long enough, he really doesn't understand it. Again, understanding something does not mean why you did it. Does not mean you countenance. Does not mean you agree with it. Does not mean you think it's a good idea as well. It could be awful. It could be a terrorist organization. Absolutely. Absolutely. Do you understand do you understand why they said these things? When the Weather Underground used to, what was the time they broke into this FBI office and they were going to steal things to, I don't know what their story was. Because they ostensibly wanted to change the war or whatever it was. They violated and trespassed on government property. Do you understand why they did that? Yes, I do. Do I agree with it? No. Stonewall riots. Do you understand why they did that? Yes. I understand it. Do you agree with it? Maybe not. Agree with a riot? No. Rioting, as far as I'm being able to figure in my particular world, does not accomplish anything. Once you lose everything. But here's the thing, which is the most interesting. When you talk to people like Piers Morgan, and I know he's not a smart, he knows, he says, this is where my bread is buttered. This is where I'm going to do this. I'm going to have all these people on. My numbers are going up. My metrics are up. I put people like Junk Yogurt on and somebody else, and they scream and yell. And Shmuley Botiak, I think they kind of toned him down. Something tells me, and I don't know, I think maybe somebody from certain corridors said, Shmuley, back off. You're not helping us. This is not good. This is not good. Bobby Kennedy, who is rising through the ranks, is going to have to deal with what's going on as well. But I've asked people, friends of mine who are conservative, or you don't have to be Jewish, but conservative or pro-Israel. And Israel, I think, I love Israel, love the people, love the place. I love my country. I ask them, do you know why this happened? And they can't answer it. I said, you don't understand the issue then. You don't understand the issue. There's the famous Shelby Foote reference during the Civil War, and they asked, there was a story, perhaps a bit apocryphal, but nonetheless, but it was a story about how a Union soldier, caught a Confederate and said, "Son, why are you fighting?" And he said, "Because you're here." Let me ask you a question while we're on the subject. Anybody jump in if you want. What was the Civil War about? The 750,000, they say the numbers, no, we'll never know the exact numbers, but let's just say this, 600,000 Americans killed. Do you think, did they die for slavery? At Vicksburg and this and Antietam and Shiloh and do you think when Matthew Brady, when you saw the pictures of people strewn bodies everywhere, do you think that was because this was for slavery? Do you think that's what this was about? Yes or no? Did you see Tucker on Rogan? They watched AJ. No, I didn't, but I will do that. Oh, let me tell you something. I will watch that. Little side note. Rogan is solid. Rogan knows who it is. Tucker doesn't yet. Tucker's he's so good. Tucker, but Tucker's not, he's not landing a punch. Remember in the old days when John L. Lewis and they would do this? They hit the guy. Did you ever see Mike Tyson do that? Never. He goes in, it kills you. Just, but in the old days, this was it. Why you rat bastard? You know, remember why you? That's what Tucker's doing now. He's not really landing it. Tucker starts off, and he's got to find his own way. He's got to be his own thing. He still doesn't understand. You don't work with Fox anymore. I want you to make sure you leave somebody with that. Just hit him hard. Give him one thing. Don't point out. Tucker loves to point out, and he'll point out some idiosyncratic, some logical error. And while at the same time arguing for gender freedom, they're actually mutilating small children and preventing them from enjoying the families that they so dirt. Tucker, we knew that. We knew that 100%. We knew that the whole time. What are you talking about? It's like, pardon my French, no shit obvious. Hit him hard with something. Alex Jones hit you, whether you liked it or not. He'd say, 9/11 was an inside job. Boom. It's like, oh, man. Well, who are the insiders? Nobody really knows. He never explained who the hell the insiders were. But it was like, wow, there was no kidding around. I got to listen to this. As opposed to, isn't it funny how they... Raul Rodriguez says, Gone with the Wind death scene. Thank you, Raul. You're very good. I like that. I like your style. Gone with the Wind. Could that be made today? I don't know. Do you think Birth of a Nation has any? You think Birth of a Nation would be I don't think so. But it was one of the greatest movies of all time. Sparky says Chavaran spec'd out a vehicle to Mercedes-Benz that would be appropriate for Iranian military. It ended up being the most famous Mercedes G-Wagon, which evolved into a luxury SUV. No Shah, no G-Wagon. Sparky, every now and then you will hit on something. I don't want to call it arcane. I don't want to call it recondite. I don't want to call it in any way specific, but you will hit on something. I remember one time, who was it? It was a relative of yours you were talking about. And old Uncle Cephas at the time of the fourth generation was in fact given the Croix de Guerre by Charles de Gaulle. Wow. I appreciate that. I love Arcana. And now you know the rest of the story. In my rules, in my rules, I have seen and listened to a gazillion times, various lectures on the Holocaust. Why do we have the Holocaust? Why do we have the Holocaust? Why are they there? Why? How did this happen? Peter Hayes is one. He was Robert Wiener. Fantastic. Peter Hayes, Robert Wiener. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. No, just wonderful. And the thing I wanted to do was explain to me the suspension. Explain to me the suspension of feelings that people have when this is going on. Explain to me how people can look at, well, for example, explain to me how you can be raised looking at slavery and saying these people that are in the field and born, they can't leave or they'll be what, beaten or shot? But it was okay. It was okay. Leni Riefenstahl, one of the great documentary for Hitler, she was like shoved. She's a genius, or was a genius. Could people just look at what she did irrespective of it? No. I start off with this premise. Number one, I'm writing my truths. I'm going to give them to you so you have them on, and I'm going to have them in a list. Number one, understand. Mrs. Howell sometimes has exhibited a bit of perhaps concern over the fact that I'm fascinated by serial killers. Not them, why they did it. Why do so few people commit serial killing? And they're not people that you would think. You can go to the worst. You can go to Pelican Bay, you go to San Quentin, you go to Rikers, you go to any place you want. You can say, how many here are serial killers? None. Where's the serial killing? None. You can you can have the worst. You can have the Aryan Nation, and the mafia, all the gangs, and the whatever. There's no serial killers. None. There might be rapists, not even serial rapists, not somebody whose idea. There are more of those, but serial killers. Why? Why are they so rare? And why are they in the most? And Bernard Giles is the best. Triumph of the Will. Listen to this, E.D. Crowley. Did you ever hear about this, E.D.? There was a story years ago, and I found this to be very interesting. And thank you. There was a story about how during these horrible experimentation, some of these artists would take the body. This is before pictures, obviously, but the anatomy of nerves and exquisitely done. But they were gathered that information from human experimentation, and people say we shouldn't have that or whatever. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute. It's terrible what they did, but does not the information itself mean anything? When they would do these terrible experiments, we would throw people into freezing water to see how long it would be before they would succumb to hypothermia. Do we not use that data? Is that it? It's not that I want to do it again, but is the information irrespective of the source? Does it not mean anything? I never understood that one. I don't understand it. So going back to serial killing, I want to know why people think that way. I don't want to agree with it. Why? Why did you become a serial killer and you didn't? Bernard Giles is still the best ever. And Piers Morgan, I think, stumbled upon this. He could see the atoms vibrate. It was the moment of he killed, I think, 5 people in less than a year. Boom, he broke at the age of 20, no cooling off. Why? And this guy was as nondescript. And let me finish with one thought. Well, they all had many of them had enuresis, bedwetting, teasing animals, and arson, fires. Well, other people were teasing animals, enuresis, but well, they're not serial killers. Well, these came from a broken home. They came from a broken home. There are people who were abused. There were people who were sexually abused. And they did. What was it about these people? What was it? And what I'm seeing right now, especially as we go through the debates, because we have a bunch of, and by the way, we have a bunch of these brats who are seen, not everywhere, but in some cases, protesting on behalf of Palestinian rights or against Israel, and they're yelling death to Israel, death to America. He's like, that's not going to work. I always think agent provocateur. I thought this is not the real thing. But here's the point. How is it that I have friends of mine who I said, and I asked them, I said, do you want to know what the Palestinians are saying, what people in Gaza are saying? No. Do you want to know what the 35,000? No. And I realized now I understand. These are good people, Christian people, or I say that, loving, good families. Now I understand it. Now I understand it. Now I get it. You find yourself in the position of being morally correct. You you do two things. You objectify, but you also discount, dismiss, and eliminate the validity of the enemy, so to speak. You just dismiss them, their cause, and you make sure you talk to people who likewise encourage you and who I've learned so much from watching this right now of how opinion has changed. I can't say it here. I say it in my private channel, but I can't say it here. But I know exactly how I've learned so much. I want everybody to pay attention. The next time you do something, I am convinced I can do something that would normally be met with a little degree of negativity. But if I do it the right way, and if I phrase it the right way and get the right people, and why the media are so critical. The media. See, I'd love to speak before a Republican group and say, you're the example of what I give. You are morally righteous. You see, you believe you are morally righteous. The left thinks they're intellectually correct. You think you're morally right. You think you're more American. You think you're more patriotic. The left, and I'm going to use these shorthand terms, they believe they are more culturally connected, more avant-garde, more sophisticated. They're able to see multi-levels. There is not anything new they don't love. They love the idea of you professing, or they love the notion of things such as pronouns and puberty blocking and gender reassignment. And I have a friend. I'm not going to. She might be. Well, her relative. I'm not going to say it, but she is the most perfect. She loves knowing nomenclature. The left loves nomenclature, phraseology. We're going to unpack this. We're going to unpack. They are far more. They are more. And remember, the left. And please forgive me. They're the first ones to get tattoos. They're the first ones to cut their hair funny. They're the first ones to listen to music. They're the first ones to say something. They're the first ones to use a particular group. There was a group recently who, when you're speaking in front of them and they like you, they do this. This is like the beatniks, like Cafe Wa in the 50s. And thought nothing of it. You're not going to see that at the Daughters of the American Revolution. So that's the way they understand, the way they think. And the more obscure it is, and there's this love of Virtue signaling is the best word to explain them. I feel for those individuals who succumb to the yoke and the millstone of white nationalism and what? The right doesn't understand what the hell that means. The only platitudes they use are things like God, country, America. Very, very simple, not complicated, but very moral. The left, intellectual, smart, sophisticated, clever, sexy, improvisational, new, avant-garde. The right, slow. The right looks at the left, degenerate, no morals, stupid, silly, immature, subversive, traitors. Sparky says, maybe like with some cancers, serial killers need risk factors to be serial killers. Torturing animals, arson, etc. We don't know about that. There are, but again, there are people. Sparky, here's the thing. There are people who will sit there and say, okay, how many of you folks teased animals? Hands will go up. How many of you teased animals while wetting your bed? Okay, hands go. How many people that burned your house down and teased them? How many of you suffered broken families, drug abuse, violence, sexual abuse as a child? Now, how many of you serial killers? No hands go up. You see, Sparky, the reason is, this is the reason. It's the craving. Do you have a craving? No. The worst thing is an addiction, something that takes over you, the addiction. They are addicted to this. And you can say why, different reasons, but very few people have an addiction to something that they have to do first. Nobody introduces them to serial killing. It's not like with drugs. You can say, here, try this. This is fentanyl. This is whatever it is. Don't do that, but this is something else. Oh, okay. I remember it was pot, and we got drunk, and somebody turned me on, and I like getting high. And nobody turns you on to serial killing. You got to go from teasing an animal to why? Don't know. I have no idea. Now, here's the best reason. And this is the most important. And I think, Sparky, you'll get this. How about if you don't agree with somebody, but you agree to the fact? For example, there are people who are saying, well, I know people who say they are absolutely adamantly against what appears to be, according to the IJC, and according to the rules of the Genocide Convention, what appears to be genocide, God forbid. You can't even say that, but I know people who believe it. That is true. That is true. They believe this, and they have the evidence. Now, two groups of people both agree. One agrees with it because the evidence seems to be overwhelming. The other group is they hate Israel. Now, wait a minute. Do you still agree with the same thing? Yes. Well, not really. Your basis for agreement is a little bit deeper than this one. Yours is just based on hatred, but yours is based on a review of the facts. That's what you've got to always be very careful of. You can have people that you think. That's why when I learned a long time ago, don't go to protest meetings. Don't, because you're being lumped into everybody's against or for something for different reasons. Do you want to go to a rally in support of the flag? Yes. Want to go to a Klan rally? Well, they've got a flag. No, I don't want to go. Well, they're a flag. No, it's okay. Well, can you just agree with the flag? No, I don't want to be near the Klan. I got that. What about supporting the Bible and God and Jesus? Of course. When I go to a Klan rally, I don't want to go there anymore. So you can seemingly agree with people for different reasons. That's another aspect of it. And what I'm telling you right now, what I've been saying for the past hour and 19 minutes, I'm sorry I've spoken too long, is the fact that I find no place and certainly no place in the world of TV or whatever where anybody loves and will spend time with nuance, because you've got to have somebody who very, very quickly says who's right and who's wrong, and that's it. Okay, you got it? Now, dear friends, thank you for showing support and loving Mrs. L almost as much as I do. I appreciate that more than you can imagine. Please go to Lynn's Warriors right now, and you've got to hear what is being done regarding children. Her work, her. Oh, yeah. This Wednesday, if you're in Long Island, she's going to be appearing at the, was it a Long Island Long Island Center for Business and Professionalism in a place called, this is my favorite town name, Mutton Town. It's a groovy place. She's going to be speaking, and I'm going to be there as well. And it's whenever you see her speak, people just, their jaws drop and say, "Oh my God!" Because still, it's the best kept secret in town. And also, dear friends, so Lynn's Warriors, follow her please on YouTube, and also don't forget my other channel at Lionel Legal. Oh, and one more word. This is so interesting, and I just have to say this. You know, Bobby Kennedy, I don't think he knows. He's just all over the place. He's, I don't know. I despise his relatives who, have you noticed, by the way, this is not meant to be cruel, but one of their sisters has that tremor, that dysphonia. You know, Collins, the senator, has it, and there must be something genetic to that. It's very, very sad. But they're talking about how they love Joe Biden. They're sellouts. They're a bunch of Democratic hacks, and they were bought off by the Democratic powerhouse. Bobby Kennedy, at least, is independent enough. His choice of vice president, you got to be kidding me. Come on, man. You're not even serious. Also, you notice how he and Shmuley, there appears to be, but Shmuley went crazy. I mean, he went with the junk yogurt and this one and screaming and yelling. I think they told Shmuley, all right, you're not helping us. And I think Bobby also said, because remember, this is 199 days. Remember, it's all about negotiating. It's all about negotiating. And Bobby Kennedy's biggest problem is Bobby Kennedy. Same thing with Tucker to an extent. You got to understand something. Tucker's still so, he's got to find his voice, though. He's not there yet. Everybody else has got it. His is still, he still has that. He was always very good when he was at Fox to kind of like be very, very, very polite. Don't hit him too hard on this. By the way, one more thing for Bobby Kennedy, tell him this. Don't sit back like this. It looks very demeaning, like, who the hell are you? I know he doesn't mean it. I know it's probably the way he sits, but he seems like he always looks bored. He doesn't come across, there's no niceness. There's got to be something there a little bit in terms of being nice. In any event, that's all. My friends, you have a great and a glorious day. Oh, and thank you so much to our dear, our benefactors today. We appreciate it immensely. Thank you so much, Sparky. Thank you. Edie Crowley, as usual. Thank you, dear friend. Raul Rodriguez. Lori Cuck, everybody. You know where you love her, from parts unknown, weight unknown. And thank you. Let me see here. Oh, and of course, Madam Stamp. Thank you so much for your kindness as well. All right, dear friends, don't forget, sign up. Got more videos coming. Got a whole bunch going up about comparing and contrasting, doing a play-by-play of Joe Biden at a Wawa, which is really sad, but worth noting. I like to break it down kind of like the Zapruder film, frame number 5. Watch it. It's so sad. Why these people are subjecting him to this, I have no idea. All right, dear friends, have a great and glorious day. See you tonight at 8 p.m. or 7 p.m. But don't forget, the monkey's dead. The show's over. Sue you.